recommend all three of these books to any of you that want to follow up on them. Bindu, what have you seen of interest in the news lately?
Well, thanks, Buford. Yeah, today, as we all know, marks one of the tragic moments in history in foreign wars, the bombing of Hiroshima. But tomorrow actually marks a very tragic anniversary in the drug war. It'll be the 2 months since Rachel Hoffman, a former FSU student, was...
That's Florida State University.
Florida State University. Her body was found after she was slain in a drug bust gone wrong. This, I believe, 22 or 23-year-old student was on her way to culinary school, but got intervened when she was picked up for minor amounts, about 5 ounces of marijuana from Tallahassee police, and they asked her to become a drug informant. Rachel had never handled anything involving handguns or this ludicrous amount of money. She was given $13,000 in order to purchase 1,500 pills of X, 2 ounces of coke, and a handgun from people that she had maybe never even known but previously purchased marijuana from or something. The important part about this case is neither an attorney was informed, nor her parents, nor the state prosecutor. So she was basically sent out on her own in order to complete this drug bust. Of course, her body was found days later. The Florida State Police conducted a press conference essentially blaming her for this incident, and outraged SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy students, of which she was a member, protested and had protests in which hundreds of people were involved. This case should have never happened. There should have been attorney information. She should have had legal advice. In her honor, her parents have formed a fund called the Morningstar Foundation, which you can contribute to at ssdp.org/rememberrachel, and where the fund is going to go towards general decriminalization, but also, more importantly, a bill that would allow attorney consent, attorney legal advice before any type of drug bust activity is endeavored upon. So maybe to give us a little light on the situation, or why we have such organizations such as SSDP out there, we're very honored to have our guest Michael Blunk here. Mm-hmm. And you started a SSDP chapter at University of Houston?
Yeah, I started in the spring of this year because I've just noticed there's this weird disparity in this country over what goes on with marijuana versus alcohol, especially because every day I'll hear a story about someone drinking too much at a bar, getting in a fight, or beating their wife, but I never hear these about marijuana, so it really made me want to look at the issue more, and this is when I came across Students for Sensible Drug Policy.
You might start out by telling us what SSDP is. What does that stand for?
SSDP is the Students for Sensible Drug Policy. They're a national 501c3 organization that works to implement harm reduction drug policies versus the punitive policies we have right now. They have chapters at over 120 universities in the country right now. So we're working at the campus level to start grassroots movement to try and change our drug laws.
Okay.
Excellent. Actually, SSDP was founded, I guess it's 9 years ago now, based on at Rochester.
Well, actually 10 years, because the national conference this year is going to be the 10th anniversary for SSDP.
Right. That's right. And where is that being held?
It's going to be at the University of Maryland.
Mm-hmm. It was founded originally based on the HEA Act, the Higher Education Act, which, can you explain to us?
I believe it was in '98 when they founded. Representative Mark Soder slipped in the aid elimination penalty, that any students with drug convictions would not be allowed to get federal financial aid whatsoever. And SSDP immediately jumped on this, thinking, well, that doesn't make sense, because if you've got someone with a drug problem that has issues, and you take away their college funding, they are much more likely to go back to their criminal lifestyle, and it's just not a productive way of encouraging people not to use drugs.
Yeah, at the time that happened, some of the more cynical of us pointed out that whereas conviction of the simple possession of a single marijuana joint could bar a student from getting federal funding, someone who had been convicted of murder or armed robbery was not barred and could get the funding. It's just another example of the irrationality.
Exactly. One of the big slogans of SSDP, they have a multiple choice question.
Yes.
And it's which of the following could end you up losing your financial aid? Is it rape, arson, murder, or possession of marijuana?
Yeah.
And that is the least criminal of offenses. Actually, Dr. Al Robeson, who founded Drug Policy Forum of Texas.
Yes, and who was the original host of this show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he, in the 1980s, I guess, when he was the department chair for integrative biology and pharmacology at UT, he was guiding students who couldn't get into the school, who had, stellar academic records, but couldn't get in because of drug convictions. He was guiding them and helping them get into school.
That actually is how Al got interested in the whole issue of drug reform. That HEW student aid bill was just amended and reformed in several ways this month by Congress. Did they do anything about this provision?
SSDP has been working very hard over the past 3 years building relations with a number of senators. Unfortunately, Representative Mark Souter, the original author of the penalty, is still on the committee that rewrites the HEA bill, so he didn't have anything to do with it. I believe Senator Chris Dodd put forth an amendment to repeal the provision, but it didn't really get anywhere this year, unfortunately.
I want to go back to Rachel's case for just a minute. I do know that one member of the Florida legislature within the last week has introduced a bill in the Florida legislature to compensate her family. But one thing that has disturbed me about her case is that everyone treats it as if this were something unusual, if it were something way, way outside of the ordinary. And unfortunately, it's not. I think the primary case was one that happened in Los Angeles, and this was at least 5 years ago and maybe longer. They arrested a teenager, a high school student, on a simple possession of marijuana charge. They took him down to the police station. Before he was given an opportunity to call his parents or given any kind of Miranda warnings or any access to a lawyer, they told him that the only way he could get out of the jam he was in was by going out with them that night and cooperating with them on a drug purchase. They told him that if he waited around long enough to call his parents, if he took any time at all, the deal would be off the table and he'd have to go to jail. The boy went out with them, ended up getting shot in the course of the transaction. The problem is the whole concept of the drug war is so off base that the only way the police can really do anything is by pushing the very edges of permissible conduct in almost every case, and it's really, really horrifying to see how many times they slip over that edge of conduct. There was one case that's hit the news within the past week or so when, based on an informant's information, they conducted a no-knock raid on an apartment where they just busted in. They were looking for a man they thought was a drug dealer. In the course of the raid, they shot and killed his girlfriend and her infant child. These are the kinds of activity we've allowed the police to engage in on a regular basis all across the country in pursuit of this really, really horrible drug war. I want to remind everyone that this is your show. The phone number is posted on the screen. Please call us and give us your contribution, whether it's question or comment.
I was going to say, I think Michael hit it on the head earlier when he said that, this obviously isn't the first case that happened. It's not the second. It's not the,
It's not the 100th.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the 100th. It's just what we are aware of. There was the case of the 96-year-old great-grandmother who was killed in a no-knock raid, which was on the wrong house.
Yeah, and it was based solely on the testimony of a so-called confidential informant.
Exactly. And speaking of, not to mention Tulia, which happened here in Texas, just outside of Lubbock, where 34, I think it was actually 50 people went to jail, but 34 of them, in fact, were African American, based on the sole eyewitness police officer who was indeed falsifying all of his evidence. There was no concrete evidence.
And who, during the time he was operating undercover, became subject to an arrest warrant for theft himself from his last employment. The district attorney and the sheriff he was working for in Tulia suppressed that information, let him go ahead with these undercover operations, and kept it from being mentioned in court.
Exactly. In fact, August 16th, actually August 15th and 16th, we've got here in Houston, Ray Hill is having his Ray Hill prison show. They're having a movie marathon, and August 16th at 2 o'clock there is a Tulia movie. So it looks like we've got a phone call. Welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
Yeah, they put me on hold. I was going to try to get on there and make a comment, similar comment, about what he's talking about that, getting that person going out and making a drug buy and all that.
Yes.
But anyway, I just want to get on there and make a comment. Something similar. Police officer made to me back around 76, 77, something similar to that.
Okay, go ahead.
So they made you become an informant?
Well, they tried to. I got busted for like 17 joints in a baggie, and they tried to get me. If I turn in 3 people, they'll let me go.
Were you allowed to consult a lawyer at all before this? Were you allowed to consult with your lawyer at all, or were they just pushing you into this?
I was a juvenile at the time.
Yeah.
And they were going. They told me if I turned in 3 people that were dealing, that they'd let me go, and I go, hey, I ain't that kind of person. Well, no, what kind of person you dealing with? And all that kind of, people you're dealing with, something like that,
Right. Thank you for your comment. That's not the actually, no.
It's not the 1,000th.
It's not the 1,000th. That's actually what got me involved in Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I had a friend who was pulled over for just all they found on him was when they finally searched his car and everything. And of course, he shouldn't have consented to search, but he didn't know his rights and everything. They found a pipe that had been fallen underneath the seat months previously. And this was in a small town. They asked him to wear a wire and go buy methamphetamines. And he was like, I don't even deal with this, Why would you get involved with something that you have no idea about? This is just, trying to find the weakest link to get to the biggest guy. And it's just sending people in to go meet with Pablo Escobar. You wouldn't do that.
Actually, they're not even interested in the big guy. What they're doing in most of these cases is using a casual user or a street dealer to get, at best, a small fish in the circle. We're being told it's time for us to take a break, so we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
The jury right to say not guilty is an essential safeguard against injustice, which dates back to English common law and the founding of the United States. Jurors in early 19th century America routinely refused to enforce the Alien and Sedition Act, and they rejected the Fugitive Slave Act. Jurors in early 20th century America refused to enforce alcohol prohibition. The injustices of the war on drugs have become obvious to many Americans. In cases where the law, prosecutorial excesses, and the likely sentence seem manifestly unfair, jury nullification ensures the citizen juror a more equal status with those who write the laws. Please visit the Fully Informed Jury Association, FIJA.org. Please keep such decisions private. Nullification is your right, your responsibility, perfectly legal and just.
Okay.
Okay, we're back again. We have with us Michael Blunk with the University of Houston SSDP chapter, and I believe you wanted to add something of interest in Rachel's case.
Yeah, one thing that ABC did a good job of finding, because we didn't actually know this prior to the 2020 story that ran on her, was that a year prior, Rachel had been arrested for marijuana possession and had gone through a drug court in Tallahassee. They actually have one set up. And part of the contract with the drug court is that if you get arrested again and you are actually pushed into being confidential informant, that the police have to notify the drug court judge prior to allowing a suspect to do anything. And they never contacted the drug court judge in this case. And so technically the Tallahassee Police Department has broken the law.
Yeah. We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, wow. Second call. Yeah, I was just calling about but the comment about trying to get somebody to go out and make a buy and I got shot.
Yes.
I had a similar type offer made back around 76 or 77. I got busted for 17-roll joints, and the cops made an offer that said, if I turned in 3 people that were dealing, they were going to let me go.
Yeah. We talked to you just a minute ago, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I wasn't a juvenile at the time. Basically, my dad just paid the fine, I think, which was $100 at the time, and I got out of it. So. Yeah. But I never, contacted any kind of lawyer or anything like that towards, the offer made. Yeah. That was the one and only time I was ever arrested for any kind of drug. And I didn't know if that was a standard procedure with the police or anything like that. So
it's more standard than you would think.
Yeah, it's the standard scare tactic procedure. Thanks for more insight on your.
And I think he points out another thing that, or both of you have pointed out something that's very, very important here. And this is that with our governmental structure, there is a sad lack of oversight of police departments and prosecutors. Basically, prosecutors, district attorneys, are totally unsupervised. They, in effect, are responsible under the law for policing themselves. They also are responsible for policing the police, whom they work with as partners on a daily basis. The result is it's only rarely that their misconduct comes to the surface. So one of the recent cases here in Houston were the 2 brothers who were arrested and their films destroyed for the mere act of videotaping 2 sheriff's officers making a drug arrest. That little incident ended up costing the county several $1 million in settlement of the federal civil rights lawsuit.
And a district attorney.
Yeah, the district attorney was involved with that one and lost his job because of apparently suppressing evidence. And that's one where the Supreme Court said clearly in Ray Hill's case that a citizen has the right to observe, photograph, record the police going about their activities.
Looks like we've got another caller. Welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
How you guys doing today?
Good.
I was reading in today's Houston Chronicle that a ton of marijuana was seized at the border in Laredo, I guess over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what becomes of that once it's seized. Do they just keep it in the evidence room? Do they take it and burn it, or use it for whatever they deem is right?
Right. Thanks for your question.
The basic answer to that is that in the case of seized marijuana, it will be weighed, the amount measured, a small sample will be used for laboratory testing so that there's proof of what it is. A sufficiently large sample of it will be reserved and saved by the police for introduction into evidence if the case ever comes to trial. The rest of it is incinerated. And then ultimately, when all of the court proceedings are concluded and the case is completely closed, including appeals, even the amount retained for evidence will be incinerated. the same thing happens with any other illegal drugs that are seized. And you mentioned the pound that was seized at the border. I'm frankly surprised that, or the ton, frankly surprised that a seizure that small even made it into the inside pages of the paper.
Right.
A ton of marijuana wouldn't even make a noticeable dent in the daily traffic.
Well, but for drug busts like that and the larger ones, where, how and where, does anyone know that these are incinerated?
The police,
You have to be somewhere
it's something that the local police have to arrange. There are all kinds of commercial disposers of hazardous chemicals that have ultra-high temperature, filtered, secure incinerators. The police operate on a contractual basis with whichever ones of these are available in their areas. So the same person that incinerates the medical trash from your doctor's office may be the one that's burning the marijuana from police seizures.
That's true. Well, let's turn the attention back to our guest here. You've got the SSDP chapter at University of Houston, which you started last spring.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any past events or any future events?
Well, most of the spring semester we were building up essentially credibility with the administration and our student government, because obviously we're a drug policy group, very conservative university up until recently.
We catch a lot of flack for the D word.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, generally speaking, anytime we go to talk to any administration types, they'll immediately ask, well, are you for legalization or not? Like, well, that's not really what we're for at all. We do not condone drug use. We are drug policy reformers who are trying to implement policies to save people's lives. Yeah.
Has their attitude loosened up any since the jury verdicts were returned against the TSU administration for suppression of student political activity?
Well, nothing yet. I know that U of H actually has a lawsuit against them right now by a graduate student who's alleging free speech violations.
Yeah.
And he's actually trying to publish his graduate work that's basically condemning Sheila Jackson Lee and her involvement in some housing projects and other buildings in her district that she hasn't been restoring and keeping up because she promised to restore historic properties, and they're threatening to cut his graduate funding entirely. So
I'm trying to think. A couple of years back, didn't U of H have some problems with trying to restrict student free speech use of some areas of the campus?
Well, I know at U of H we have designated free speech zones. You can't just go mouthing off anywhere on campus. You have to be in certain locations. You can't use any amplified sound. I haven't heard anything specific other than that. I mean, that's been the policy for a number of years from what I know.
That's, I guess, a lot of UT schools as well, where I was, and an SSDP chapter in El Paso had the same problem where they're not really eliminating so much as confining your free speech, which is unfortunate, and also the use of amplifiers, bullhorns, etc. So.
Well, as a teacher, let me say I had just as soon not have loudspeakers and amplifiers and rock bands at a protest just outside of my classroom window. But other than the basic restrictions necessary for the carrying on of campus routine, student access to the campus grounds and school facilities for speech-related activities by law should be as open as is possible.
The administration at U of H, for the most part, has been actually quite receptive to what SSB is trying to do because we aren't a drug legalization group. So we're pushing policies, including a Good Samaritan policy, that would, if a student calls 911 for any medical emergency, they would be protected for any violations they might be involved with at the time, such as possession of marijuana or being a minor in possession of alcohol. The idea is so that students can make responsible decisions when someone's life's on the line.
To throw a little background in here, one of the major problems across the country, especially among heroin users, is that an opiate overdose is an easily treated medical condition, and it's one in which normally It's slow acting, and there are actually several hours in which medical intervention can prevent a death. And large numbers of the heroin and other opiate overdoses across the country have been caused because the friends or associates were afraid to take the person to the emergency room because they were afraid they would get busted for heroin possession, or it would lead to a search of their apartment, or that they would be conspirators of some kind or another. So New Mexico, for instance, has been large lead in this concept of Good Samaritan law.
Yeah, New Mexico has a statewide 911 Good Samaritan law, and that's why STP calls it the Good Samaritan campaign, to go along with that policy.
Right. It's time for another break. We'll be back with our guest in a couple of minutes.
Sometimes when we have a problem, we only use one tool. It works pretty good most of the time, so we keep on using it. Pretty soon, when your only tool is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. With prisons overflowing with nonviolent drug offenders, it's time to try some new tools. Drug prohibitionists beat the drum for more jail time, but that has been a self-defeating policy. If someone has a problem with drugs, they need medical help, not incarceration. The drug war is doing more harm than good, and it's time for a change. By reducing the consequences of prohibition, we can deal with the real issues involved in a rational drug policy. There are better tools. If you would like to help reduce the harm caused by the drug war, please visit our website at dpft.org.
Okay, maybe a little of the money I spend on marijuana supports terror and violence.
Right.
And that's because marijuana is illegal.
Exactly.
When I buy a beer, that doesn't support terror because beer is legal, right?
Now you've got it.
So what you're saying is if we make marijuana legal and regulate it like beer, that wouldn't support violence.
Did I say that?
Okay, we're back. Well, with your new chapter at U of H, how has your membership been going after this first semester?
Well, mostly just talking to everyone. Right now, I have about 57 people that are on my regular email list that get all of our updates, know what we're doing, getting people actually coming out to events. I mean, U of H is a commuter campus, so every group seems to experience problems with that.
Yeah.
Right. Let's get more into your group after this call. Hi.
A little bit off topic, but I'm still surprised y'all haven't brought it up yet. Last week in the House, a resolution was passed, and I forget the number, 1040, 4010, something like that, which moves some regulation of tobacco from ATS to FDA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know that this is a complicated issue, but even, the least vocal voice, who happens to be from Texas, has chimed in on this.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's a hot potato that Congress really doesn't want to happen. A resolution's kind of meaningless. FDA tried to step in and regulate tobacco about 10 years ago. The Supreme Court told them that Congress had excluded alcohol and tobacco. Right now, the FDA's got very much a hands-off, we don't want to do it procedure, because they say we're in the business of dealing with drugs that help people. Tobacco's designed to kill people. FDA's a very poor fit to try to manage or regulate personal use drugs of any kind. I think it's going to take a larger reorganization of the government structure to come up with a comfortable way to oversee the marketing and use of things like dangerous things like alcohol, tobacco, to some extent methamphetamines, and more personal drugs like the opiates, cocaine, the hallucinogens, marijuana, things like that. The FDA is not equipped structurally, legally, or philosophically to handle these things correctly.
I know that the House bill that he's talking about got passed with an overwhelming majority in the House.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the main proponents of it are arguing that by giving the FDA control over tobacco, they'd be able to regulate what chemicals go into it, making sure that it's a certain grade so that, I mean, they don't even know half the chemicals that are in cigarettes right now.
These are the same issues that, believe me, we're going to face if marijuana becomes a legal product as well.
Well, I almost see it somewhat as encouraging that tobacco is being put under FDA regulation, because it almost opens up the door that's saying that, look, if people want to use something, we should make sure that it's a safe product and that it's not going to have something they don't know about, which to me parallels exactly with what most of the drug policy reform argument is.
Yeah. Well, once again, as I say, I question whether the FDA...
Understandable.
Yeah. But what kind of things do you have coming up this next semester?
Well, SSDP at UH has a whole slate of events planned for the fall semester. First up, we have a Know Your Rights event, which will be to educate students about their constitutional rights and protections and how to handle police encounters.
Okay, let's take a call and then come back to that.
Hello? You're on the air?
Yes, I was noticing a lot of times that within the inner circle of society with the councilman and the mayor and a lot of these upscale dinner parties, there's, usually the mayor, the councilman, and other city officials and bankers, but a lot of times that major supplier, aka businessman, is usually there at the dinner party also, mingling with the mayor and other people. So the mayor and the other council are usually aware of who the supplier is, and do they usually have these under-table favors going, I do you a favor, you do me a favor, or I have a secret, and we can make a business deal, so to speak?
Thanks for the comment.
Okay. The problem of who scratches whose back in the relationship between politics and money is key to the American system, but too deep to go into here. Let's go back to your coming up schedule. After Know Your Rights, what's on the table?
Well, after Know Your Rights, we're going to be hosting a movie, most likely a Cheech and Chong movie, to kind of relax students, get them introduced in a more social environment to help increase our membership even further.
Let's get back to more of your events. Hi, welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
Hello, good show.
Thank you.
Could you tell me the ramifications of seeing more than one doctor to obtain opiates in the new law coming up on September 1st against doctor shopping?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not familiar with that, but this puts you in the same boat as Rush Limbaugh, who in effect was accused of doctor shopping to stack opiate prescriptions, and they treat this basically as an illegal purchase of opiates. Now, the problem here is, and I hate to say this, but most doctors don't know a damn thing about prescribing opiates, and some of those that do are afraid to prescribe them to any extent because of their fear of both the state licensing board and the DEA.
Most doctors are more aware of the scrutiny they'll be under by the state licensure than they are about pain management.
Yeah, luckily, there are today a growing number of doctors who are specialists in pain medicine, who fully understand the use of opiates as well as other forms of pain relief, and who know the way in which to approach the practice of medicine and to keep the records so that they're able to prescribe adequate amounts of whatever kinds of painkillers are necessary. And frankly, I would say that anyone who thinks they have to go to multiple doctors to obtain enough opiates to do the job for them is probably going to the wrong doctor, and they need to seek out a doctor who is trained as and who operates as a specialist in pain management. This is another example of harm reduction. But, well, after Cheech and Chong, what's on the board?
Well, I was hoping to have Dean Becker or someone from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition to come and speak to kind of show the other side, I would say, of a lot of the drug policy movement, because people who actually experience the war on drugs and who have in the past fought it, saying how it's not effective and how through all the years of experience nothing's changed, and so we need to try something new. And then after that, we're going to be having a Marijuana 101 kind of education day to teach people not to counteract essentially the government message on marijuana, because it's constantly portrayed as this horrible addictive drug that will destroy your life, when in truth it has a large range of medical uses that don't get talked about. I just don't think the population understands marijuana enough to really make a decision on it on their own.
That sounds like a busy schedule.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's any activity or any organization going on at any of the other campuses around Houston?
I have not specifically heard anything from any other Houston campuses. I've been trying to do a little outreach, but it's a lot of time just getting things going on one campus,
right.
Much less than the others.
Yeah, and frankly, with U of H, you've got probably the biggest group to work with, the most students to reach, so it's a good starting place.
Yeah.
But
Right. Have you tried talking to any of the like student Democrats or ACLU chapters or anything like that?
We do not have an actual ACLU chapter at U of H. I have talked to the Young Democrats and the Young Republicans, and for the most part they seem receptive to allowing me to present things and give information, but they don't seem to want to endorse anything or put a specific position on anything. Yeah. Naturally, of course.
Yeah. Right. Sounds a lot like national.
Yeah.
platform.
So, do you have much dealing with the chapters at other schools or the national organization? How active is the organization above the local campus?
Yeah, Students for Sensible Drug Policy has a number of very active chapters, mostly located on the eastern seaboard, specifically because of their proximity to Washington, D.C. and ability to actually lobby representatives. I am working with the outreach director for SSDP to try and set up a Texas coalition of SSDP chapters, because I know there's about 4 or 5 other schools that have at one point had chapters in Texas, but I think that organizing them together would give us a lot more power at state lobbying level.
Let me ask you a basic question that I think we have to ask any organization these days. Do you have a website yet, or do you have a presence on any of the social networks or place online where your organization has a presence or can be found?
Yeah. SSDP is a very internet-centric organization because it is a grassroots organization. That's the easiest way to get people involved. The national organization is at ssdp.org or schoolsnotprisons.com. And
Schools Not Prisons as one word.
Yeah. Okay. And then the SSDP chapter at U of H is www.uhssdp.com. Really easy to remember. Come check us out. We're working right now on getting all the information up there. Again, it takes a lot of time, but we'll have all of the campaigns we're running and then all of the events and what all members can do to help. So everyone will check it out sometime.
Is it an interactive site so that people can get in touch with you?
Mm-hmm. There's contact information, there's email address, there's link to our Facebook page, because every SSDP chapter has a Facebook page, including the national organization.
Okay, I suspected that was the case.
You can't really do a lot with college students if you don't have a Facebook page nowadays.
Are you getting any response through Facebook?
I've gotten some interest, especially from people at a few other schools have contacted me with some interest. I forward them to the national organization because, again, we don't have the time to try and organize another school's chapter. But, yeah, there's definitely been some interest.
Okay. So,
Fantastic.
Do you have anything else you'd like?
Well, actually, there was your Know Your Rights campaign.
Mm-hmm.
You briefly mentioned that. What does that entail?
We're going to be playing Busted, Citizen's Guide for Surviving Police Encounters, which was made by the Flex Your Rights organization. It's a very good film about what everyone's constitutional protections are and how to handle themselves anytime they encounter police, whether it be in a motorized vehicle, when they're walking on the street, or at their house. And then we'll also be having Greg Gladden, former ACLU of Texas director, come and speak to do a Q&A about aspects that the Busted film doesn't really cover.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think that's essential because, unfortunately, nowhere in our education system do we set out to citizens what their rights are and what their liabilities are when they encounter a policeman. We always just assume people are going to be nice, that they're never going to break the law, they're never going to run into a policeman. Unfortunately, that's not the truth. And it's really a failure of our education system that we don't have a mandatory course at the junior high school level of, you've been busted, what do you do?
There's actually a program in Houston that's a volunteer program that people go and teach your civic rights to elementary school students, even, which has started a few months ago.
I'll have to look into that.
Definitely. Hi, welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
I'm really impressed with your guest there, Michael, that he's aware of the bill, and since Buford cut me off, I'm calling back really quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Though I did see the whole debate, I'm not positive I got it all, and I haven't read the bill, but from what I caught, they were trying to basically regulate caramel-flavored cigs for kids, you know.
Yeah.
And the counter debate was, that's, might be considered the gateway chemical, and menthol is next.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem with that bill is that it specifically excluded menthol-flavored cigarettes from prohibited flavors. And the Black Caucus was very upset about this because menthol cigarettes are almost overwhelmingly smoked by black populations. So they removed the candy-flavored for most children, but they left the menthol in for African-American children.
And actually, there are a couple of other things at work here. In that a lot of the flavored cigarettes, clove cigarettes and some of the fruit-flavored ones, are actually imports from the Indian subcontinent and were originally targeted at the people from there who use them. One of the other things that they came up to were the fact that the cherry-flavored small cigars were frequently taken, scooped out, and used for blunts for smoking marijuana. But hey, you can go to any convenience store around and buy a plain tobacco-flavored, already empty roller. It's time for another break already, so we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Let's play high.
Too fast to take time for the things you really enjoy? Positiva can help bring back the pleasure of activities you used to love. Some of the highlights of Positiva may include increased appetite, lower blood pressure, and significantly lower stress. People who take Positiva discover a whole new outlook on life. Positiva may not be right for everyone. Consult your physician today. Positiva. Now you have a choice, a positive choice. For more information, visit us online at www.normal.org.
You're watching Drugs, Crime, and Politics on Houston Media Source.
Welcome back to Drugs, Crime, and Politics. Thanks for watching. Remember, you can call in at any time with questions, comments. We have a news story here that a recent study found that exercise diminished cocaine abuse. This was by a Davidson College Associate Professor, Mark Smith. Showed that in laboratory studies, animals that were compared to control provided with up to 10 kilometers of exercise per day were less likely to self-administer cocaine than animals that did not have any type of exercise or locomotor development such as that. So I guess you said that it's...
Oh, yeah, it's because exercise, like a lot of things that humans do, releases dopamine and serotonin and the same feel-good chemicals that any drug such as cocaine would. So if you naturally increase those levels, you're going to be a lot less likely to need something else to artificially do it, such as cocaine would.
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, I have two quick questions. I'd like to ask your guest how he's funding his movie. Is he using his own resources or some type of aid? And my second question is, when a person is detoxing off of marijuana, are there any legal herbs or fruits or vegetables that can cleanse you out pretty fast or over a period of time?
Okay. Thank you.
Well, funding for our events, the University of Houston provides some funding to student organizations, but I'm also working on proposals to give out to local businesses to try and get them to advertise at our events, maybe hand out coupons, cater the food, just pretty much anywhere that we can find funding, we're trying to find funding.
Yeah, and basically, for the kind of thing he's doing, an organization at a university, primarily for educational purposes, where he's not charging admission, then he doesn't have to pay commercial rates to rent a film.
Yeah.
And as for your detox question,
I would recommend looking online.
I would say there's really no such thing as detox from marijuana. Contrary to all of the nonsense you have heard from Parents for a Drug-Free America, from the DEA, marijuana is not, in the classical sense, addicting. It is not habituating in the sense that the opiates are, or that the barbiturates are, in that it does not cause any kind of long-lasting change in your central nervous system that requires a withdrawal and readjustment period. Detox for marijuana simply means stop smoking today, wait on the current stuff in your bloodstream to dissipate over the next several hours, and then work with whatever habitual problems you may have developed.
One thing I find interesting is that the cannabinoids in marijuana actually bind to fat cells.
Yeah.
That's why marijuana stays in your system up to 30 days. While
For
most
drug
drugs,
testing purposes,
Yeah.
but those are not psychoactive, so they don't affect your mood or behavior. Do we have another caller?
Yes. Hi, welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I suffer from depression,
Okay.
and I know that marijuana helps the condition very, very much.
Okay.
But when I ran into somebody from my congressman's office, actually Sheila Jackson Lee's office, congresswoman, I was told that the reason drug companies couldn't do any research with marijuana is that it is an illegal substance.
Okay.
Which I think is ridiculous, because they do research with cocaine, with heroin,
Okay.
and God knows what else that they gather in the forest.
Okay.
All right, thank you for
But
your...
they do. That's where they go to get a lot of the stuff. There's no plant in the world they don't test for something.
Right. Thank you for your comment, but it's absolutely true that marijuana has been found to have so many beneficial effects as far as medicinal uses go. For hundreds of years, people have known anywhere from glaucoma, which is widely known now, to AIDS wasting disease, multiple sclerosis, and even recently any type of neuropathic pains. So the FDA does allow some testing,
Excuse
research.
me. No, the FDA is not involved in this.
Okay.
Marijuana is scheduled under the Controlled Substances Act as a Schedule 1 drug
DEA.
under the DEA. Illegal drugs are Schedule 1 drugs with no medical use. On application to the DEA, may be licensed for experimental purposes. Up until about 10 years ago, they allowed practically no medical experimentation. Over the past decade, they have grudgingly allowed a few researchers in medical schools to do some cannabis research that has had outstanding results. There is right now a very major project that's been going on for several years, testing MDMA, ecstasy, for post-traumatic stress relief, which is licensed. The problem is the DEA is extremely grudging about these licenses. Drug companies don't do it because there's no money in it. Everything's already known about marijuana as a drug, so there's no patent, therefore no way they can make fortunes with it, so drug companies aren't interested.
Welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
All right, y'all said call in at any time.
Okay.
So 5 more seconds.
Okay.
Did y'all catch Seth Rogen on The Daily Show last night?
I did.
Okay. What did
Thoughts and comments on that, please. Thank you.
Well, I mean, Seth Rogen is simply saying to everyone that you should smoke more pot because you can go on to make movies about pot and make lots of money doing that. I would say I don't think everyone could make money doing that, just like not everyone can make money doing any one thing.
Yeah.
That worked for him. I don't think I'd advocate it for anyone, really.
Okay. Before we run out of time completely, I'd like to make my editorial tonight based on a news story that appeared yesterday about a congressman who rather reluctantly agreed to be a co-sponsor of Barney Frank's bill to decriminalize personal use of marijuana. He then refused to appear on an own TV appearance with Congressman Franks to talk about it until he started hearing from the people in his district. He got calls from people he had never heard of. 80% of his constituents that he heard from were in favor of him. He did appear with Franks. He got an even more favorable response. So it's important, very important, that your representatives hear from you and the way you feel. In our last minute, do either of you have a quick last minute comment?
I would hope everyone to check out our website. Events are open to the public. Anyone can come, not just U of H students. So if you are concerned about the drug war and drug policy at all, give us a check and go ahead and email me if you want.
It's uhssdp.com?
Yes, it is.
Great. And Congress is in recess right now, so legislators may very well be at their home offices, so now's an excellent opportunity to try to grab a hold of them, shake them into their senses.
Yeah. So remember, it's your law, it's your politics. Stay in touch, and we'll be back with you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
The present policy of drug prohibition is hopeless. It is hopeless. It will never get better. Literally, victory today is being defined as slowing down the pace of defeat.
We ought to listen to science and medicine when it comes to whether marijuana or any other substance has a medical benefit.
The fact that marijuana is the less dangerous drug.
We're going full-blown into a program that has failed and failed every other time we've tried it. Please point out one success in 30 years of an eradication program that has stopped drugs from coming to this country. Point out one success, because I've reviewed that research and there isn't.